What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is very exciting. We're going to put a front bumper on the Cummins swap landcruiser, and we found kind of a different style of bumper from Long Range America. It's not your ARB style. It doesn't have the hoops. So let's take a look at it. So this is more of like a slee short bus style, but not at all. It is Australian made, which is really cool. I do love how most products, or pretty much all the products I've got from Australia, ARB, Ironman, are just really high quality, and they stand behind their engineering and everything. So this is, I believe, 1/4 inch plate. I'm gonna put all the statistics of it up in the description, or you can just go to the product link. This is, I believe, partnered with the cruiser company. I'll have to get the exact details on it in a sec here. But it's going to come with all of your grade 8 hardware to install it on the frame rails here. And we really do need a winch. So obviously we have our Apex 12,000 pound Badland winch that we'll install. And as I'm mocking this up, the fair lead will fit. The mounting configuration is going to be a little different. We are going to have to go feet first so that the winch will fit, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have to relocate the control box. I have a feeling I am. But the cool thing about the way this is designed is that all the mounting points, or bolt hole mounting points, are configured to where you can kind of locate them front or back. There's holes drilled so you can access the bolts from the front and the bottom, and we're going to try and get this thing faced all the way forward so that we can fit it. So let's get going. First thing we need to do is attach the winch. This is about 85, maybe 100 pounds, not really that heavy, but once we get the winch on, it's gonna be really heavy, and we might need help from somebody to put this on. This shielding plate will mount up here up top, and then with these slots on it, I'm gonna put some aux beam amber lights, 5-inch rounds, so that I have better lighting than these LED lights that I have on it are okay, but obviously putting the LED lights on here will be only used for trail. And it's snowing out here in northern Idaho. So finally got our first good snow of the year, and I can't wait to take this thing out, do some camping trips. So we've got our first little issue that we're gonna have to figure out. This mounting plate here for the lights and for the winch cover is going to be contacting the winch right about here. As you can see, we still have about 2.5 inches to get up to that hole to mount the bolts, securing it to the bumper. Our fair lead will go right there, and we'll actually mount through the bolts going into the winch, but I think we're gonna have to cut this wing off, and I don't think that's really gonna mess with the integrity of the, the structure. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and lop this off with an angle grinder and see if that gives me enough clearance. All right, so we got the winch mounted. Had to go to the hardware store and grab some different size bolts to clear this extra 1/4 inch plate winch protector. And this has a really cool feature, which this is a license plate mounting bracket, and it flips up so that you can retain your license plate and still use your winch out of the fair lead. When you need it, you just flip this up. We'll put the license plate on eventually, but we've got some washers in here, grade 8 hardware, and we're ready to try and lift this thing onto the frame rails. I was gonna use the engine hoist, because once we get in here, it's kind of a tight space, and I don't wanna be having to hold up 180 pounds of bumper. But I've been deadlifting recently, and we're gonna give it a try. Got a really good health insurance policy, so if anything happens, I can rely on that. Unfortunately, these frame rail holes are fine thread, and usually you get a lot of rust and corrosion in there. So I'm gonna pre-grease all of these, or maybe just use some engine oil, and hope that it slides in. And then the biggest issue we're looking at is, will it clear the intercooler with the control box? And I'm not sure that it will. I actually have a feeling that it won't. So we might actually have to relocate that, but only one way to find out. Well, it's mounted, but this isn't gonna work. We already have an issue where our fitment's not gonna look perfect because we have a 1-inch body lift for the Cummins. So it's never gonna line up perfectly with the fender cowl combination. But like I was worried about, the control box is going to be contacting the intercooler. So if anything happens, we're gonna break our intercooler and then not be able to drive like we should with boost. So that means that the control box is gonna have to come out. We're gonna have to look for a place to mount it up in the engine bay. Other thing I'm worried about is the intercooler piping. Remember, this is all custom, so everything is uncharted territory at this point. I'm gonna have to move those hose clamps, clock them differently so that I'm able to access them if I need to. But yeah, not ideal. Gonna have to do some workshopping to figure out how I wanna tuck this as neatly as possible so it's not sticking out. I mean, it's gonna be sticking out a little bit, but we're gonna try and tuck that in a little bit. So let's take it back off. All right, well, that's about as tight as we're gonna get. We don't have any issues with our custom setup being the intercooler. It's not contacting any of the boots or anything. It's actually just contacting this body mount area. So that's as far in as we can go. So I'm not gonna really worry about that. We'll go ahead and call that good, start putting the bolts through. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. It's not ideal to have a body lift because this is what you get. You get that kind of 1-inch area that doesn't look great, but trade-off is pretty good. We get a winch, so we need to be able to recover. We got all the bolts lined up and bolted in, and we also got our license plate mounted. And what I was talking about is the ability to take this up, which the way I kind of drilled holes through the license plate in order to mount it, it won't really get in the way, but it is nice to have that option to bring that up. We'll leave it like that for the time being. The threads are really messed up on these, as are most 30-year-old landcruisers, but we use some anti-seize, so they should come out if we need to. But yeah, that's going to be good for winching load on this thing. And check this out. We've maybe got 2.5 inches between the tire now for the extra weight. That's another 200 pounds on these 30-year-old stock springs, so those are gonna have to go. We have some Ironman 2-inch heavy springs coming just for the fronts. And I'm not gonna do a full lift kit yet. I just wanna get this thing to where it can drive and not rub on the fender flares and take them off when we hit a bump. So we're almost maxed out on the bump stops. We have about maybe 2 inches for the bump stops. So theoretically, it should start contacting the bump stops, but we're definitely going to rub, and we know that. This is the stock 30-year-old suspension, so this thing is sitting low, and with the extra weight of the Cummins, of course, it's weighing it down. So the rear, we're actually sitting pretty good. Again, we're gonna be doing a full 2-inch lift kit eventually, but for now, so I can get out there and have fun, I've just got some 2-inch coils on the way. They're really only 220-30 bucks from Ironman, which is not bad. But yeah, I like the look of it. Had to do a little bit of modification, and of course we don't even have access to our winch electronics yet. I'm probably going to have to fabricate some sort of a mounting plate on this area here, and then wire in the winch to the 3 leads going to the back of the winch there. You can't see it, but yeah, there's the 3 leads down here that we need to make our own wire and then wire it up to the winch controller, which will sit here for the time being till we get our wire. Overall, a success. We'll be working on this in the days to come. We gotta wait for some parts to get in the mail. Well, it's a few days later and we made a lot of progress on moving the winch controller up into the engine bay. So let me show you what I did. Wiring's not completely cleaned up, but we have the leads soldered to 2-gauge welding wire, and it's going underneath the frame up into the engine bay. Again, this is not tucked in yet. Just wanted to make sure that it'll work. But what I did is I took just a piece of aluminum, bolted it to the winch controller, and then used 2 existing bolt holes on this fender here, and it's plenty sturdy. It's not going anywhere. I've grounded to the side of the fender well there, and then I've gone with my power over to the winch solenoid that I just zip tied onto the ABS area here, and then went into the hot side of my battery. I've tested it out and we have full operation of the wireless control, and we've got our Apex 12,000 pound winch mounted and installed on the Cruiser Company or Long Range America bumper. Again, the reason we did this is because we didn't have enough room for the winch controller because of the intercooler. But now we need to address this lack of room for articulation on the front axle. Now that we have 37s, we could cut the fenders and take these fender flares off, but I do like the look of the body lines with the fender flares. So we've got these Ironman 4x4 heavy duty front springs and a 2-inch lift. We're gonna unbox, get the wheels off, put bottle jacks under the frame, and then install these coil spacers. It's actually a pretty easy job. You just have to be careful doing it. So we're gonna chock the wheels first. So the first thing we're gonna do is put bottle jacks on the frame side because we need to get the frame up and the axle down. Then we're gonna use 2 jacks to level the axle down so it goes down evenly, and we shouldn't have any problems. So I just wanted to show how I take the springs out. I get 2 jacks so I can lower the axle at an even rate. I've removed the lower nut that fastens the shock absorber onto the axle housing, as well as the sway bar, which is mounted to the frame. And that gives me enough purchase while having the bottle jacks on the frame, making sure that it doesn't slide left or right. And I've also taken out this panhard bolt in order to allow the axle to come down evenly and not sway to the right, because as it goes down, and that panhard's gonna take the axle over, and then our bottle jacks could come off the frame and the whole thing could fall at me, which I've actually had happen, and I was lucky enough to escape quickly enough to not get smashed. Anyways, let's get these springs out, put the new ones in. I did just want to show a comparison of these 2-inch lift springs compared to the OEM springs, and you can tell the windings are a little bit tighter on the Ironman 4x4 ones. They don't appear to be much taller, but these are rated for a little bit higher of a load in the front, 110 to 220 pounds, which with the bumper and the winch on there, and especially the Cummins, that's going to equate for the difference. I had some speculation in the past whether if it's a right-hand drive or a left-hand drive, obviously this is America, so this is a left-hand drive, that the near side would be the passenger side, but it actually needs to be the driver's side, because Ironman 4x4 is an Australian company, and most of those are right-hand drive. This coil is marked DS for driver's side, so that will handle the extra weight, I believe, of the driver, if I'm not mistaken, and this one is marked near side, meaning it's the passenger side. So that should go on this side because we're left-hand drive, being that we're in America. So hopefully that works. They say to reinstall if you're noticing that it's sitting a little bit higher, but we're gonna go with what they say. We also have the 30mm Ironman spacer in the coil tower, and we're gonna leave that in to get as much lift as we can for the weight of the Cummins. All right, so we got everything put back together, reinstalled all of the panhard bolts and all that good stuff. Everything is lined up and torqued down, and we got quite a bit more clearance now. Probably only had about 2 inches before. We probably got about 5 to 6 now. It looks better. It's going to ride a little rough because of the lack of caster. I may end up doing caster plates here. I may not. We'll see. How bad it is, I'm not even interested in taking it to Firestone to get a readout because I know it's going to be pretty atrocious. But yeah, we've got a decent amount of clearance for our tires, so we're no longer going to have any issues with rubbing. I don't believe. We'll have to see, go lock to lock and see where we're at, but this is a win. Definitely need shocks, but I'm probably going to do Fox shocks or look into some, maybe the foam cells again like I did on the last one. These are just the original OEM shocks, and they're shot. They're old, and they're not going to be long enough to articulate the axles like I want. Didn't have to use a sway bar drop bracket, I just fabricated a little piece of steel going to the frame side to give it a little bit more play, but I really like the way it sits. Back hasn't changed too much. We're still pretty close on the rear, but we'll end up going with 2-inch coils on that. Eventually, we are going to do a rear swing out bumper for the back of the 80. So this is going to go away, the tow bar is going away, and we're going with the Long Range America or Cruiser Company, same company as the front rear bumper, and it'll have a jerry can and a rear tire swing out. So that'll be nice to have on there. That extra weight will actually be good, but we will need another 2-inch lift. I'll probably end up just doing the light springs because, as you know, these all have a little bit of a rake and we don't want to have that. We want it to be leveled. But yeah, we've got about 3 inches, not enough obviously. I can tell though from the paint I haven't really even started to rub in the rear. In the front I did. I can see where some of the paint's chipping off from it rubbing, but shouldn't happen anymore. Had rubbing here. You can see some of the paint has been rubbed off from the lack of clearance, which we will no longer have issues with. Can't drive it yet because we don't have a rear drive shaft in right now. I'm in the process of having a shop retube this drive shaft that I had, and it's going to be shortened by about 1 inch, which will be fine when I go to a 2-inch lift in the rear. If I calculated correctly, it was a little too short and the drive shaft was maxed out all the way towards the yoke. So we don't want that. That means the back can't sit down anymore or articulate. And it's because of this kit pushing the transfer case back like 1.5 inches because of the adapter plate. So drive shaft should be done tomorrow and we will get that reinstalled, and then we'll be able to drive this thing and go test out the winch. The nice thing about having a lift too is that when we inevitably have to take the transmission out because of the issues we're facing, we'll take these off eventually too, because we're gonna make sliders with that Dom tubing. Should have enough to just roll the transmission out on the transmission jack, so that's a plus. So we got our rear drive shaft back from a local machine shop here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and it's been retubed. Here are the welds, and he did a really good job. He said that this axle side U-joint had a little bit of play in it, but they used this white grease, I forget the name of it, that he said took up a lot of the slop, and he said to actually reuse the original U-joints that Toyota used. I think they're Coil brand, and he said they're just really good. If you can find them, just keep them, and he can retube them. So again, this is a little bit longer than I needed stock length, so I had it retubed about 1 inch shorter because this was maxed out all the way at the end of this shoulder on the slip yoke, or whatever you call this. Something he mentioned before also is that it was out of phase, and it definitely happened when I was doing the Cummins swap and took the drive shaft out, and then this part came out, and then I tried to put it back in what I think was in phase, which means that these U-joints are facing the same direction, or there's some sort of orientation that you clock them in the correct, relation to each other. So he's put a little mark here and a mark here so that if I ever get them out of phase again, I'll know how to get them back in phase. So let's get this back on the landcruiser so we can get it driving. Now for me, this is the best part of the VE pump compared to a P pump. No block heater, and listen to it just start right up. So nice. All right, we're out here at my favorite parking spot, so let's take a look and see what we got. Man, I think she looks really good the way she's sitting right now. Obviously the back, we need to get 2-inch lift springs on the back, but I mean, I'm really satisfied with how it's coming together. Long Range America bumper looks great. Again, the body lines aren't perfect because of the body lift, but it looks super aggressive, but it's pretty tame at the same time. Having the license plate mounted is really cool. Full operation of the winch. Got plenty of room to get in here and engage and disengage for free spool. And furthermore, with the springs, we have full operation of our steering. It might have been rubbing a little bit, but I didn't hear anything. And that area is all gone anyways, so it's bent up. Paint's gone, but I don't care. Who cares? We have a Cummins swap landcruiser. This thing is so cool. Just the sound alone is so awesome. I think this is the perfect amount of lift for what I got going on. I won't be able to articulate a whole lot because the shocks won't allow for enough travel, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Comment down below. How do you guys like the way she's sitting? Is there anything you would recommend doing that I haven't done? Really starting to grow on me with the red color, that dark red. Digging it. Oh yeah, you can see from this angle, she does have a little bit of the Carolina lean, that squat in the back. We'll need to take care of that with the lift in the rear eventually, and we're gonna do a long range America full swing out rear bumper with an integrated tow hitch. It'll have a full swing out tire carrier, which will go on the passenger side, and then a jerry can holder on the driver's side. Super stoked. Love it. Looks amazing. We finally got armor on the front. Gonna be getting rid of these stock side steps and putting sliders on, fabricating those soon. Make sure you stay tuned for that. I'm gonna just be doing it with a Harbor Freight tube bender, some 120 wall Dom, 1 3/4 inch. Man, super stoked. Also, I'm noticing that she's leaning to the driver's side, maybe an inch or two. I had to ratchet strap the axle to the frame in order to get the panhard bar to line up in the bolt holes, because we now need an adjustable panhard bar because of the extra lift that we have. So this piece here will get replaced most likely with an Ironman 4x4 adjustable panhard, but that's a problem for another day. We're liking the way this thing looks. All right guys, well that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. Super stoked with the Long Range America front bumper. This is going to allow us to recover ourselves with the winch when we're out on the trails. We're actually planning a camping trip this coming Sunday. We're gonna try out the diesel heater, get down to some pretty low temps and see if the diesel heater will work with just the 300 watt Jackery. We're gonna sleep in the back of the landcruiser and try to get into some trouble in the snow. So we'll see how that goes. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments section below, and we'll see you in the next one.